Welcome all for another exciting series of the F&B Talk with the Restaurant Times. F&B Talk is a series that is on a knowledge sharing basis in helping budding entrepreneur wishing to enter into the food and beverage and service industry, and for existing colleague to use it as a way to get a better understanding and also enlightenment from other colleagues through their trials and tribulation. I am the host of this series. My name is Peggy Lee, Managing Partner of Strategic Partnership Solution, SPS Affinity. My background is 18 years Michelin star experience working with the likes of Joël Robuchon, Abtu Kutcher, Gordon Ramsay, to name a few. Now, being the fifth edition in the series, I have a huge honor and great pleasure to introduce a lady within the industry that I am envious and admire to, and also very few female leaders within the hospitality industry. Dagmar, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you,
How
thank you, thank
sweet.
you, thank you so
Thank
much
you so much. The honor is all
because
mine.
because we got to know each other through the GM debate, through the Hotelier magazine back in 2019.
Correct.
And then since then,
Yeah.
you know, I was following you and seeing your movement, shall we put it this way.
Mm.
And it has never been so intriguing, to see another fellow lady who really put out her guts and souls and fight through our very distinctive industry, shall we put
Mm.
it in such an extent,
Very
and yet
nicely worded.
and yet able to come up with such flying colors. So well done, well done, well done. I mean,
Thank you so
first of
much.
all, I mean, we've all been through the interesting time. And then obviously looking through your LinkedIn, it gives me such a interesting perspective in life. I mean, you started off from hotel, and then
Mm.
suddenly you have this leap of faith in
Yep.
working with luxury retail with Louis Vuitton,
Mm.
and then went back to
Mm.
hotel.
Mm.
Now, how did you manage to go through that transition, or
Mm.
what appeared to Louis Vuitton, or shall we say, then for you to go back to hotel? Because it's a very interesting combination of move
Mm.
within your career
Mm.
path.
Mm. First of all, thank you so much for the invitation and for you to talk. Who is following whom here, Peggy? So I thank you so much. It's a real delight, and true, it has been a while. COVID didn't help to connect faster, but good to see you, and thank you for the invitation. Now, look, life is a funny place, and I agree. I kicked off my career in the hospitality. I was blessed enough to do the École Hotelière de Lausanne as a really good foundation for hospitality, and I kicked off for a few years. Got married in between. My husband is foreigner, joined him in his country, was not too happy there. We went back to Europe. And out of a pure coincidence, actually, Louis Vuitton was looking for senior management leadership. And I think, between hospitality, we're such a service-minded industry. I have always touched luxury hospitality. So there is this element of luxury, I think is important as a link to then the luxury consumer retail business. And I felt it's not at all a contradiction to also shift, to leave your comfort zone and to explore other luxury products. Now, the being in a luxury environment that is basically creating emotions, it's a service industry, it's trying to tailor make an experience. And to be very honest, I think it's very, very similar in all the other segments of luxury. Might it be, fancy car brands, or might it be what I've chosen, Louis Vuitton, and then ultimately 8 years also with Bulgari. And I think it was, hospitality people have also this communicative gene. You are very hospitable by nature. You like to serve others. And I think that
We know how to make friends like this.
absolutely, it is really true. And this is how you link then, because what is it? You don't need a Louis Vuitton bag, and you certainly don't need a fancy collier. You would like to have it. It's all about connectivity that gives the base of then ultimately creating emotions, purchases. And look, it was a try. I knocked at their door, and they were open enough, I have to admit, back then, to also allow somebody coming from a different industry in. And it worked exceptionally well. I stayed 4.5 years with Louis Vuitton, was then between opening stores in Germany and also in France, then marketing director. And then there was a moment when Bulgari approached, and I thought, why not? I had no clue also, but I mean, jewelry as we wear it, but the fancy high jewelry stuff, of course not. But you learn by taking it upon you. So it was a relatively organic transition, actually. It looks maybe a little bit more tricky on a CV to explain it, but if you think in detail who we hospitality people are, you can easily cross the border to other service industries.
No, I
Yeah.
can completely agree with you, because at the end
Yeah,
of the day, for us in the luxury hospitality, is all about attention to detail, and
absolutely.
also persevere enough to read all the body language
Yes,
and the preferences of the client. So
absolutely.
technically, if you look at it from how the way we approach customer from a luxury hospitality or haute cuisine perspective is no different to selling a piece of Bulgari jewelry or expensive
Absolutely.
watch, etc. So I can totally see that resemblance, but it's more intriguing where from a luxury retailer accepting someone who are from a complete different path of service industry, and still allow you to explore and taking you on to a quite a senior position, and for you to excel on. So that was the very intriguing part that I was like, I have to talk about that one, sure.
Yeah. Very nice. No, no.
So Dagmar, please, I mean,
Yeah.
for the likes of the listener and the viewers who does not know you, or have not had the chance to search you or haunt you, shall we say, on
Yeah.
LinkedIn like
Yeah.
I do, please give a little bit of an overview of your career, especially your duration in the Middle East since 2016, and how have you managed now to be landed in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with very little, and I mean very little, female hospitality worker, let
Sure.
alone in a senior position such as
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Look, we just covered a little part of, the early years, let's word it like that, leading then into the retail business. And, it's very funny because my office was actually in a Kempinski hotel. It's really hard to believe, but the office of my last assignment in the retail with Bulgari, we rented from the Kempinski Hotel in Munich. And for 8 years, I was literally circulating in the hotel as well. And there was always a very strong link. I love hospitality. I think you would share this with me, that we all have this crazy gene in us that makes us just very passionate
We
in
have
doing
to.
it. And, it was, despite what I said before, there were also personal circumstances that let me not really combine my life with this intense hospitality segment in the early years. Later on, once you have senior positions, it's a little bit easier to arrange your timing, but it's a very time-intensive business. So having had 2 children back then, and my husband, I could not immediately, go back into the hospitality. But I always had this target in front of my eyes to say, as soon as there is an opportunity, family settling in, kids maybe, a little bit bigger, I would love to be back. And guess what? The opportunity presented itself. I could rejoin after over 12 years in retail, the hospitality, and it was a conscious choice. It did not happen by coincidence. I really wanted to be back. It was just a matter, would they take me back? And then if so, because it's also an evolving industry to some extent, and if so, where and what level? So basically, I joined again hospitality then with Kempinski, and we had a clear deal that I would come in, despite having been general manager for a few years before, but just to settle in as a hotel manager. So I did also quite a sacrifice on package and salary, but at least to go a safe route in settling in. That would then ultimately lead, after a maximum of 2 years, into being GM again. So basically, I got a huge support. I jumped into the water again. I got the assignment. I joined the Kempinski in Munich. And seems that this all worked out very well with an amazing support back then of the company. And then I was entrusted, which leads now to the experience in the Middle East, with the pre-opening of the Summerland, Kempinski Summerland in Beirut in Lebanon.
Yes.
And not only was it intriguing to go in the Middle East, but Lebanon is a subtle mix of Middle East and European culture.
True.
Due to the history, especially the elder generation is French educated. There's a lot of French footprint in the country, and me having been for so many years in France, that helped also from a how should I say that? I like this French lifestyle and accept the climatizing part. I fully agree. And then, with kids, the schooling in Lebanon is amazing. And they have quite a good medical environment. So, it was a good combination for a family to move. I have never done a pre-opening. And it was a super challenge. So I took this upon me. And that is actually when my path started to go to the Middle East and then to really stay there. So basically, I joined roughly 10 years ago Lebanon, opened the Kempinski Hotel. That took 3 years. It was during the time of the Syrian war. Was not really funny, but you can make it. And then I fell in love with the country, wanted to stay longer. Was approached by the owners of the Intercontinental Hotel, was then cluster general manager for Phoenicia, Intercontinental, and the Vendôme. Beautiful properties, both. Stayed with them. And then, you never know when is the right time to move on, because I felt it's a little too early to settle in Lebanon for good. And then through a friend, and the network in the hospitality is
typical.
Always.
We never managed to find our dream job on LinkedIn or any conventional
it's always
way
somebody
doing.
knows somebody.
It's
who
always
absolutely.
like the relationship. It's very bizarre, because I was talking this whole cultural thing with friends. I'm like, at the end of the day, Arabic, Chinese, Indian is all about connection, how you do business, which is different to the European. But then looking at from a industry perspective, like service-centric industry, the best way to find the best people to fit the job, it has to through connection. Otherwise, you would never find the right people.
Absolutely. And there is a saying in German, tell me who your friend is, and I can tell you who you are. So you basically find similar-minded people that might like the same as you do. That's exactly it. It was all about network. And in other terms, indeed, through a friend of mine, I understood there is a vacancy in Oman. And, Oman is also still a little bit the hidden gem. It's not that much yet in the forefront of hospitality. And I thought, after 6 years, total crazy animated life in Lebanon, who knows what a quiet country would do good for me. And I had a 2 years assignment in a beautiful hotel, Anantara Jabal Al-Akhtar, in the mountains of Oman.
Yes, I've stayed there. It's a very surreal place. I think ultimately speaking is Oman tourism. I mean, despite now we recently seen all the evolution, like with Muscat Bay, etc. But they have pretty much stayed relatively rural, shall we put it this way?
Absolutely.
And somewhat of a hidden gem. So when I was first introduced the property of Anantara Jabal Akhtar, I was like, really? Oman, so intriguing, with such an intriguing, location. I mean, we know there's a wait to be discovered, and the await to be discovered part has to come with a lot of baggage. For example, the government improvement on the legislation and looking at building further infrastructure, appeal power, etc., etc. So from an Oman tourism perspective, between you and I, we're industry colleague, and even for the listeners and colleagues in the industry, seeing the boom of Saudi, could we see Oman on a little, skirting to come and start growing from the side? Possibly. But are they? But with all the going on, are they going to make it appealing enough or applicable enough to have tourism to be a more significant GDP in the country? So that was also my question. Yeah.
Look, they have a slightly different stance to developing the country. The base idea, if you want to compare it now to really case A, where I am currently, Oman has a totally different appeal in the country. And at the same time, they take it at a slower pace. I'm always saying Oman has truly, by the Sultan, by His Majesty, declared a vision 2040, whilst here in the kingdom, the vision is 2030. So there's a totally different dynamic behind it. And I think the Omanis take it a little bit on a slower pace. And you said rural. I think it fits quite well in this more organic, in a little
eco-tourism.
Yes, maybe that's also a good wording. It's a little bit more sustainable. They do not want to have this fast-paced growing, and they do also not support what you would see in Dubai, for example, the skyscraper and all the rest. They want to keep the country somehow as a natural reserve. Maybe that's also another way of grabbing the wording. So they grow more organically in a very healthy way without overdoing the tourism segment. And honestly, now with the pandemic, I mean, who would have known that COVID would also change the world? But I think this pandemic has given all of us a very conscious understanding of tourism, of traveling, of staycation. You stay in your own country now to discover. And in all this, I don't know, nature has become a real trend, sustainability, environmental. And there Oman might be, again, one of the hidden gems. Yeah.
So how did you then transit from Anantara Jabala Akhtar up in the mountain, beautiful canyon?
Yeah.
And
No, it is.
Now in the glitz and glamour of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Well, I hope you all
use that word. We've been seeing.
No, how sweet. Yeah. The Arabic Grand Canyon. I hope you did also the adventure wall to hang in and to get a good Instagram pic. But look, I think Oman was an amazing experience. But first of all, it's a remote location. And the remote location by default has at one stage, a little bit of tendency that you want to move on. That was certainly one. But more importantly, I was approached for this project here. So don't ask me why, where, what. But I got this headhunter contacting me early last year if I would consider an opportunity in Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia, certainly, we hear about it, you know where it is, and you have heard a few stories left and right. But I thought it was a very intriguing offer without knowing at the very early stage what it really was. And then COVID also started hitting the hospitality, and by that on its own, you started slowly but understanding that there will be a certain dynamic in the hospitality that will lead to a first downfall. And then came this project to life, and I was approached not only by a headhunter, but the company behind us is Hill Robinson, which is a yacht management company in Monaco. And because in this key expertise, we seem to perform very well, some of the clients have expressed to also take over different features of their personal belongings, such as private jets, helicopters, and ultimately also their estates.
Mm.
Now, of course, running an estate is very different from the yacht management or running one of the ships. And they needed a hospitality specialist because the first client in this undertaking happens to be a very well-situated gentleman here in Saudi Arabia. And for that, we needed to create our legal entity in the country. We need to really create a new business wing, and we have done the implementation of the company now under Hill Robinson Estates Limited Saudi. Of course, building a total new business wing for the company that derives from the yachting industry. And I found this personally super intriguing. To literally be at the foundation of something completely new in various pillars. The one for the company itself, then within the company, creating a new business wing that the company has never worked in. And it's not far away from hospitality, you know, running private estates has this touch of housekeeping, you know, the culinary field.
It's almost like you run another hotel, but this hotel doesn't have guests come and check in and out on a regular basis. You're seeing the same set of faces, but yet the expectation goes up on a daily basis.
Absolutely. I mean, the expectation is very high because it's really tailor-made. But on the other hand, it's also a blessing because you don't have a P&L. We don't have any revenue center, right? So all this pressure of TripAdvisor and fancy
gimmick, yes, a promotion.
Absolutely.
I mean, okay, yeah, you still need to consider like the holidays, the festive, because they would want to host parties at home.
Yes.
But you then don't have to think about, you know, RFP and all these stuff that, you know, we've been all fighting. And the other day, I even saw this article, finally, you know, the restaurant industry waking up to understand restaurant industry also require revenue management. Because I've been preaching of this word revenue management of the days that when I was at Le Toulet de Robuchon. And then they just keep looking at me and say, woman, what are you talking about? All we need to know is we just need to hit an average spend and we need this number of people. I said, but that is already the baseline of revenue management. And how do you then justify the upselling and ensuring and looking at your business in the extent, you know, where are your peak hours, where are your slow hours, and how do you then maneuver? So no, I think it's almost like, you know, you've landed a dream job that can do what you like without the pressure and the burden to perform the commercial aspect.
You see, it combined, you know, once I promise you, Peggy, I love the Middle East and everybody knows this. And it was not an organic choice to go to Saudi Arabia. It could have been Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar. But it's true, I wanted to explore another country. And when this opportunity came up, I think we are allowed to say Saudi Arabia is still considered being somewhat an exotic destination for various reasons. It's not immediately the prime destination you want to work in. Then I thought, noting how women have only very, very recently been able to be a little bit more liberal in the country, I thought, if they entrust this to a female leader, fair enough, I'm European, I'm an expat, but still, you know, it was not an obvious choice. And I thought it's maybe nice to inspire also others, because I'm a fierce advocate of female empowerment in a very healthy way, not at all feminist, but simply believing in yourself that you can do it, and that we go out there with a certain confidence and trying to tackle it. So that was another part. And then, you know, you start looking into it, and it's very close to hospitality, so you're not burning bridges. COVID hit badly. That gave it a certain security dimension too, because I'm not dependent on revenue. So I thought, like, if not now, when then? And it had another total luxury appeal to it, because now I'm really in the ultimate of luxury that you can experience. And And then you start looking into it and you realize there is this Vision 2030 that is more and more opening up the country, that you can really leave a footprint also in one way or the other. And I thought this combination overall, amazing. And the next part was then also being GM in the hospitality has changed tremendously, right? It's not anymore only the people's person who is trying to be general in all fields. It's a very financially driven environment. I think it was always a business. That's not the new invention. It's like hand washing in COVID. I mean, as if hospitality has never been a business. Now, of course it has been, but now it is broken down in more details, per square foot and per peak hours and this and that. And the stakeholders have changed because most of the owners are pure investors and they just want a return on an investment, which is legitimate, but that changes the tonality for the GMs. So I thought, if not now, when then? This seems like a very unique opportunity, and it turned out to be super unique. Very challenges, but very, very interesting. And I've not regretted once, and I'm very happy in KSA.
So now you have been in Saudi for 1 year. And as per what you just said before, the 2030 vision of the kingdom. So from the time you landed, obviously COVID, and to now, we've been seeing advertisement booming everywhere from Neom, Amala, Alula, Oxygen, Formula One. Oh my God,
now in
Diet.
2 days.
Oh my goodness. It's like, I have to say, literally Saudi news, you see it every other day, first of all. And as well, His Highness has put in the big words that he will bid for the next expo after Osaka.
True.
So all these are putting such a huge footprint and yet a very powerful and stern statement of how determined the kingdom is to evolve and grow and to, I would say, shall we put it in a very lighter note, in restructuring or reconfiguring their cultural and the country image to the modern age that is approachable, that people can go. But so far, from the time you've been there till now, with all these new initiatives, what is the most eye-catching to you, and how have you seen these new initiatives able to help to propel the hospitality industry in the kingdom?
Look, I think it's very fair. You're absolutely right. It's this Vision 2030 is such a bold reform agenda, championed by His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, who is a visionary, true visionary. Now, given the time frame of from now, just basically 10 years, is enormous to transform the country. And he does it in a very progressive and yet very subtle way. With subtle, I mean his father is still alive. The king himself, it was always traditionalist. So you cannot just have great ideas now and to implement it. You have to honor, and in these cultures, honoring the elder is a very important feature, and especially on that level of society. So, and the society is not fully ready yet to go faster anyway. You have to have a certain pace to take the society on board in the change. But he is a very dynamic youngster with a great vision. And this vision is based on 3 pillars. The one is to transform the nation into a vibrant society. The other one is a thriving economy. And then the third one is to be this ambition nation, versus to show the world what you can do. And even during my time now, fair enough, because 2 years ago, women were allowed to start driving. That was a big breaker in
that was the pinnacle.
That was absolutely. That was really a big one. And you see them now, yeah. You start also seeing little signs, at least amongst women. Expats do not need to wear a abaya per se anymore, as long as you are respectful in covering your shoulders and your ankles. The younger generation takes it a little bit more colorful. It's not, everything is not black anymore. You know, you have the pink appearing here and a little bit there. The abayas are a little bit open and you see the cool jeans underneath. So there is this change. And what I felt the most, because I started looking into it as well, you know, how was it before? Because everybody told me, wow, the dynamic is enormous. And once you're here, you do not see it immediately, because for you it's normal as of the moment that you arrive. But if you imagine that the literacy rates of women in 1970 stood at 2% in the kingdom, 50 years ago, 2% of females were only able to read and write. And where they are today with universities, you have a huge amount of the youngsters, you know, studying, going also abroad. So there is a total opening to society and to the Western world. Don't forget either, from a religious point of view, KSA was always very enclosed, you know, Mecca, Medina, and that, by the way, to give the link to hospitality, was basically the only tourism that was existing. It was a religious tourism and a few business-related traveling.
Yeah, because that is the only so-called the most legitimate traveling, and yet has the highest demand, which, you know, the most mega hotel, the Mecca, now is called the Pullman Mecca, I believe.
Wow, absolutely. It's enormous.
It's humongous.
It's not humongous. It's humongous. I think that is absolutely it. But you know, they were a little bit unlucky too, because they launched tourist visas end of 2019 for the first time ever to open up as a tourist destination. And then sadly, you know, COVID hit. And it had such a sharp downturn after the kingdom launched, you know, to be a tourist destination. But you feel it. So you ask me now for what I really see here. It is enormous in the hospitality. And you mentioned it yourself. You have these beautiful, enormous projects, the Red Sea project. You have the Amal project. You have Neom, Alula, you mentioned it. So in the next 5 years, there are about 200 hotels to see live. We just had the Forum of International Investors just 2-3 weeks back, where the entire international community met, also from the hospitality industry, and everybody is investing. It is unbelievable what dimension it takes. And that across all segments. You really have from the simple hotel via, for example, Intercontinental, between the Vocus and the Holiday Inns, and, you know, across Kimpton Jeddah is supposed to open next year. You have the Four Seasons, the Mandarin Oriental, the Ritz-Carltons. Now across the road here, the St. Regis is just about, you know, to be finalized. It is enormous. And for the restaurant industry, exactly the same. Yeah. What we don't have yet is, of course, a certain consumption of alcohol, but I personally believe this is just a matter of a few years and it will open up. But the restaurant scene is booming equally. Yeah. More in chain restaurants still, you know, these individual, not really yet, but it's... You see it and you feel it. The kingdom is striving to become one of the biggest economies in the region, and in all sectors, because with the investment, you can imagine, comes the finance sector. Construction sector is now the key sector, because that you need before you have the hotel, right?
Totally.
So they are attracting international developers at all levels, and they are here. You see it, you feel it, because more and more, you know, I'm living here in the diplomatic quarter. You have all these visitors now and businessmen and women, by the way, more and more, that are all here to support the local community to strive towards the Vision 2030.
Mm. So you've touched up on a bit of the next question. Now, as you said, because of this vision of 2030, and as you said, you know, of the evolution now of all the different brands of hotels and the flags are being stood up at the kingdom, as well as what you said with the restaurant. What other evolution, from your opinion, that you can say that you will see is about to happen or take off? Let's put aside these cloud kitchen delivery, because you know those things is it will come into play, because obviously of the younger generation, of the citizens of the kingdom, and you know, just like any other teenagers, they like to have their comfort food, they like it to be delivered, they don't want to be bothered. So the cloud kitchen, the delivery, those are all thriving and will be here to stay. But what other trends or what other things that you think KSA will be having in the soon future?
Look, I think that the first part, KSA, is really preparing their presence as a new prime destination, in the tourism sector. And that goes along then hospitality, restaurants, all in. The younger generation, I think, one of the biggest challenges, I believe, the question was formulated differently, but I have to throw it in, is the harmonization between the educational system and the actual requirements of the labor market. I think that will be the maker or the breaker here, because the Middle East in general, but more importantly, still countries that are in, or you could view it as an emerging market if you want to take it like this, they're very dependent on foreign workforce.
True.
And the Saudization aspect is a huge undertaking here. In Oman, by the way, Omanization was the word of the day. Depending, you know, where you work, you have certain quotas. That is the same here. And they really try to push it through. So you see with evolving in the hospitality and in the restaurant business, you have to align it with the society in carrying the workforce and the employment market along. Now, because of this evolving sector, the education system also has fully changed. You have now also the girls being at university. You have the
and then
first
there
ones
is
working.
the first female hospitality college in
Exactly.
Saudi as well.
Absolutely. You have international communities investing here or signing up deals. Cordon Bleu, for example, has just signed up. And so this is all starting to happen now. And you see that our entire hospitality and restaurant sector is interested in Saudi. You have pop-up restaurants. You have, despite yet it is a dry environment, the first bars and clubs in a conceptual phase. It will all come. It changes tremendously, and in that it changes the society along, because it gives enormous opportunities for the youngsters who are now at least try to get the right education. We have the first hotel management wings at universities, and you rightfully said we have the first hotel institution also for females. It's a steady evolvement going in parallel, and then at the same time you have the other diversified sectors that go along, which is real estate, finance, IT. But I think the biggest part that plays a role here is that Saudi Arabia maybe has learned from neighboring countries that it's not only about growing, it's also about sustainability and environment. And I think with the climate change that we all see happening and all these discussions surrounding it, Saudi Arabia tries to put a big footprint on the map in that regard in all terms, and especially the entire coast, Red Sea coast, is an environmental project. with an enormous sustainability part in it. So evolving. You see it growing by the day. Basically, you always have something else pitching up, and that opens a total new perspective, if I may call it like that. Yeah.
Yep. So we're going back to the female leadership.
Yes.
Now, it's dear to your heart and it's dear to my heart.
Yes.
As a female C-level industry elite such as yourself.
Yes. Nicely worded.
So, in your opinion, how have you seen the evolution of female leadership within the region? And how have you seen, because obviously we always know that, female workers as a gender is an integral part to the service industry. It's like a yin and yang, there are certain positions that is being performed better by ladies. But then as soon as we surpass a certain level, past the managerial level, that's when we all keep hitting bollards, red tape, glassware, plates.
I agree.
Needles, etc., etc., etc. So please.
Yeah, wow, Peggy. I'm really absolutely passionate about this, but out of a pure inspirational role. Look, I think deriving from a culture where you have all opportunities from an educational perspective, from breeding, grooming, environmental, you name it. For me, as a German, I have never given thought about these huge cultural differences in the world. And when I entered the Middle East, I started realizing with my assignment at the Phoenicia Hotel in Lebanon what it meant for the local community to have a lady as a GM at this prestigious hotel. And it never, and I promise you honestly, it never occurred to me to think about it. GM role is GM and you work your way through. I love what I do. So it did not occur to me what that meant to the female community in Lebanon back then. And this is when I started realizing that you have to give back to some extent to the community, to open doors if you can, based on the position that you have. I think here in the kingdom, for example, the culture has never prevented females from working. However, the culture also dictated that you have a certain role to play. So females have by default not been part for generations in the economical development of the country and contribution. Absolutely. Yes. Now, this has tremendously changed in opening up opportunities for females. And I think it is also fair to say that the kingdom has struggled with issues regarding women for a very long time. And is it there yet? Absolutely not. But they start to open up, to westernize a little bit the opportunities for female empowerment. I personally believe, and you know this, Peggy, that the sky is the limit currently for females. If you dare, if you believe in yourself, you can do it. And that is across all intercultural, sensitivities. Of
you being a prime role model, as I would call it, yes.
This is very sweet, but I think in my case, so in it grew a little bit organically because we had the support in our early years, and then I think we both had also a husband, which is an integral part of growing, that supported us.
Yes.
Which is already also something not everybody has, because by default, we ladies are still those who get the kids and have a different burden. But look, you see definitely an increasing number of female recruits in the hospitality. And I think that inclusion and diversity is so important to create a healthy demographic in our business and in a society, that we have to push it definitely further. But you have countless positive developments regarding the role of women now in the hospitality. And I can see it here through the mere fact that the borders are getting, more open for everyone. Is it easy? That's a different topic, because I think, I think our male colleagues are a little bit more daring in what they believe they can do. I think women are more hesitant and they are more honest to themselves and, by the way, to employers. It is proven, by the way, and that is not me that has done the research, that if you have high senior level positions, that females would only apply if you fulfill in full the job requirement, whilst our male colleagues would stop already at 60% and say, I try it, I can do it. And that on its own says a lot. I think we are sometimes lacking this ambition to step over the border of hurdle and try to just do it, because we can. But I'm a firm believer that the current times are absolutely in our favor. Why am I saying that? I think that with the pandemic and the huge challenges encountered, leadership has to be redefined. First of all, the stereotype has to be broken. I think the leadership model has to be redefined. And we will need far more, and it will happen, flatter hierarchies. And if you have a flat hierarchy, you have to have a far more collaborative leadership approach towards your team than ever before. And I think that the attitude of females are much more designed to transformational leadership, for example, or change management, when you have to have the buy-in of all stakeholders in a healthy way. And we do it differently. We are more empathetic. We have a different way of communicating. And I think women do not have a supportive leadership style, because you feel rewarded if your team members, grow with you. We are very
it's the mother instinct that we have.
Absolutely.
That, when we see the team grow, it's almost like, it's like one of my protege or one of my apprentices is growing the rank. And regardless whether that person is still under your wings or not, you feel that sense of pride that, yes. I have had the opportunity to hold hand of this person's career journey. Yes.
Totally. And women really pursue a more inclusive leadership style, implicitly convey also the value of cooperation. It's a different way. And we are far more team player. We bring everybody on board. And I think, by the way, with the younger generation kicking in, we have to admit also that we're getting older and they are new joiners. They have a totally different style. And empathy is one of our key elements, and as you rightfully said, we have a nurturing style. We are by nature, we have this predisposition to really look after people and embracing them. And I think, honestly, this is needed. This is needed more than ever, because this classical model of hierarchical structure, my prediction is it will fall away. We will more and more now having transformational leadership needs, because COVID also has damaged so many industries in large that you have to start to rethink. This rethinking, by the way, might also lead to different working hours, being more accommodating, working from home, which is very much in favor of the female workforce, depending who has children at home. So honestly, I believe the time has never been as favorable as now for female leadership, and in favor of inclusion and diversity.
Wow. You've literally answered everything that I wanted to ask in 2 questions, because the next question that I wanted to ask you was, what would you like to see the most on how women leadership or development of our industry of the region. And as you said it, because of COVID being such a disruptor, therefore the new flatten the hierarchy in the hotel. But more so to the extent now as there is as shall we put it this way, the kingdom is ever so eventful these days.
Yeah. Yes. True.
So
Nice.
how else do you see female workers as well as young female leaders within our industry able to take part with all these eventfulness in the kingdom?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, in the kingdom, I think they need help. That is a given. It will not, what I mentioned before, organically grow in a fast pace. I don't think so, because the society is not ready yet. And the other part is, hospitality has this service mentality, and that is, I think, across all nations, has not always been perceived as a valued industry, because you are serving others. And the serving others here in the culture is very clearly defined for a certain typology of expat community. And you know how it is. Our industry is a service industry, and we are all not born leaders. And this is what I try to tell the youngsters, because we also worked as line staff. We worked our way up. We are not born general managers or senior leaders. We had to go through the hierarchy as well. And in that, I see that for women, it is far more complicated yet to really enter our business. But you see them. You see them more in the administrative field. You see them in guest relation. You don't see them really in service-related operational fields like F&B and housekeeping. I have not yet seen that so far, but at least they enter in the more decent admin functions or on the guest relation level. Front office is a classic, sales and marketing, and you see them. You really, and I think it's actually very nice, because they start also changing the look. It's what I said earlier on, it's not anymore a black abaya. They play with colors, and they're pretty girls, really, really good looking.
Oh, they're stunning.
Stunning ladies, absolutely. So you see, I think we have to, women have to stick together. I know that sounds so cliche, but that's the way how we have to empower the younger generation. I think it needs far more role models that also explain that if you really have the confidence and you believe in yourself, you can do it. Do we have to work harder? Yes. Yes, we do. And it is also proven. I usually don't like saying that, but women have always to prove themselves before they get a promotion and move ahead. Whilst our male counterparts are far more self-confident, and by that they aspire more competence, which is not the case, and get therefore the promotion. We have to break this totally open. Those ladies I have seen in our business are amazing. They are passionate. They are detail oriented. They have this human appeal, the empathy, the nurturing part. And we have to simply support them from all angles. At universities, for example, it would be nice, I try to open the first doors here at the universities to just tell about what you can do and what you should do in order to. I think we have to mentor them properly. And what I also always like saying is, we women, sadly, we have learned to compete with each other on different levels, right? Is she prettier? Does she have is her outfit a little bit more chic than mine? If we would put that away and would stick a little bit more together, we can do so much more, so much more. And I personally love working with women when it comes to areas that need a more detailed approach, even in finance, by the way.
Yes,
Number crunching.
multitasking needed.
and multitasking. The communication, you know it. Communication is the most sensitive thing in any company. I think we are good communicators, but what I like most is that we support team members to grow and we enjoy it. We do not see that as a competition that someone takes our chair. We surround ourselves, also with stronger characters, and we are happy if they make it. So I think our natural disposition is ideal for the hospitality. It's a perfect rounded package to make it happen, but we have to foster on the belief you can do it. Just do it. We are too hesitant. We need to break the ceiling open in a different way. But I think we can. You have proven it as well, Peggy.
Thank you.
We have to say it too. You were also very provocative, and I do it. I find my niche and I establish myself. And you did it because you saw that opportunity. And I think what also classifies to grow is the mindset. It's all about the mindset.
True.
Where there is a will, there is a way. And I hope we see far more. But here it's a cultural sensitivity still. Parents still have something to say, and it needs to grow a little bit into. But the opportunities are there; they are enormous. Yes.
Oh, when you talk about cultural, I've mentioned it so many times I don't know how many times I've mentioned it. I think I almost mentioned it once in every single of my series of my trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
In telling my parents when I wanted to take the path of hospitality.
Yeah.
It was like thunder, lightning, tornado, monsoon, hurricane. It was all of those.
I still hear my parents, I come from a
Yes.
total medical background. Everybody is doctor. And here I come, hospitality. And don't ask me why. Hospitality was the call of the day.
Hospitality and hospital, is close enough, sister.
Yep, true. It's actually a different form as well, right? It
Exactly.
is a hospital. Basically, it's the same industry, just with patients, right?
Naturally.
But my father used to say, you live in hotels, you don't work there. And I was like, wow, taken. And I promise you, it was a very hard ride. I was blessed that my parents supported me in full as to the hotel school, because that was a true privilege. But, I had to also deliver. And that, until today, gave me a good foundation, in network as well. It's not about what you learn there, it's the network and how but it was a tough ride. It was a very tough ride, but I love it. And you do it as well. Otherwise, you would not do these talks either for the good cause. Yes.
I love, as I said, when they first invited me to be a guest host, is obviously, first of all, I'm very honored because I am possibly the very few female presenters that they have had. And when I mentioned that out of this series that I'm working with them, I have got to have a female interviewee to as part of the package to complete my my shall we say the wish, my well wishes, or the dream ticks. Clearly it has been such a pleasure. Now, Dagmar, what I always do at the end of the interview, I always ask my guests two things. For you as a industry colleague, what is your best word of advice for people who are wishing to enter into our weird, wonderful, and flamboyant industry?
Yeah. So a kind of advice from my end.
Yes, your word of wisdom on how you would like to tell them how we've gone through the the revolution.
Yes. Look, I think our field is most likely driven the most by a true enthusiasm and passion to do something for others. Career path comes on its own if you do your job well. I tend to believe also that money cannot be the driver in your early years. And besides that, if you really want to earn money, maybe being employed in the hospitality is not always the best of all, unless you're really then in a senior leadership position. I think it needs a lot of personal investment, hard work, the right positive mindset, a truly servant attitude to make it happen. And I think with passion and doing something that you really like, you cannot survive in the hospitality if you don't feel it. It's not an industry that you can approach with pure rational and logic. It doesn't work. At least that's what I see. Especially because the first years are exceptionally hard. Line staff is not easy. Fair enough, depending maybe also on which department, but it's not easy. However, it's worth every investment. I think it's one of the most diversified industries. It's a beautiful industry, but you have to have a little bit of tenacity and resilience in the earlier years to really go through. I think important is also that they understand you cannot grow without working hard. It doesn't exist. I mean, if you want to become YouTuber, go ahead. You know, it's a little bit more creative and you try your luck. But in any business, not only ours, it's hard work is part of the deal. And that needs a super sound mindset to, you know it, Peggy, over time. Not once in my entire career was that ever a thinking of mine. In the contrary, we used today late night shifts, you know, went out, had a good blast, but we are focused on the morning shift because this was then, oh, sadly, I was not the lucky one, you know, I had the morning shift. We went full straight through. We loved doing what we did. I have sometimes the feeling that our youngsters, and this is not to offend anyone, need to learn how to enjoy life in a healthy way, that it's possible without iPad and only technical advice, you know, and support to enjoy, to still see the beauty out there. And hard work is a given. You have to go through in a humble way. Because we raised our kids all as little superstars, and the world is not waiting for little superstars. So I have to break this sometimes mentally that you are not a superstar, nor are we. We did our way. We had to make it happen. We had to work our way up, and that is part of the deal. And then it doesn't matter which business you are in. And remain honest to yourself. And the last one would be integrity. Do the right thing when nobody sees it.
And then
I hope.
And then one last one is you to our fellow industry colleagues. What are your word of advice or words of wisdom to our fellow colleagues in the industry?
Maybe it would lead back to what I said earlier in a different context. I firmly believe hospitality, the most important asset is the humans from all angles. And I would want to really challenge them on the inclusion and diversity aspect, on giving youngsters a chance. We all had a chance at one stage in life, you know, to give us the break that we needed, to be open-minded in that sense, but to also regain again this human factor in our business. And I usually tend believing that if you deal with your team members in a healthy way, I'm not saying in an easy way, you know, you have to be strict when need be, but you have to accommodating and empathetic when need be. If you deal with your team in an adequate way, they count for me more than the guest, because ultimately the guest will feel the vibes in a hotel and the team will go above and beyond possibilities to make a guest happy. So I would very, very much hope that the human factor comes back into our industry, replacing this pure number crunching finance exercise, noting that it's a business. It has never changed. I don't think either the numbers have ever changed, but the approach to it, I highly, highly dislike. And the other part I would like our industry leaders to follow is to lead by example in a good way, to inspire also, what it means to manage and to lead properly, and to walk the talk of their own slogans. Because very often you have all these great, vision and mission statements and the slogans on the walls, and nobody lives it. And that makes it just so obsolete. So if you come up with all these things, live it yourself first, that the team can follow. Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much again.
It was a pleasure, Peggy. Thank you so much.